Morning, guys. Welcome to Dan's Fab Lab again. And today we're going to get it shaping up these outer rocker panels for the Toyota Landcruiser. But I want to take this test piece that we had cut off the end of it, and getting this to the pretty close to the right size. And what I want to do is to run it through the bead roller and see how well we do. But something that I've seen on YouTube here is where guys will pre-stretch the area where they're going to insert a bead. And what that will sometimes allow them to accomplish is that the distortion on the flatter surfaces is less. And so obviously this is how my lines would lay. And so my flat surface that runs alongside the Toyota Landcruiser, I want that to be as distortion free as possible so that there's less metal work after we build this. There probably will still be some. But so what I'm going to do is a little experiment with the test piece, and we're going to run this through the English wheel, and I'm going to use kind of a moderate crown on this because I just want this in kind of a thin area that I'm actually going to I'm going to use offset dies on the bead roller, and so I'm not going to be pulling from wide areas or anything. It's not a great big like 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch bead or anything like that. So anyway, and maybe that's not the right anvil to use, but I don't want a completely flat anvil either that's going to widen out my area, and maybe that's what I do need, who knows. But we'll experiment with it a little bit and see if we can accomplish that. 18 gauge is fairly stout, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be pulling some metal, and we'll see where we land with this. All right, apparently what had happened when this was sheared off, it left just a little bit of a ridge on there. And that can leave an impression in your anvil, which will ultimately then leave an impression in your metal. So we'll just, again, we go in at that 45 degrees and just run the center of the wheels right on the, we'll make a few passes here at this pressure. And this kind of machinery always impresses the heck out of me. It's been used by artisans for years and years and years. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of a track mark. And that's how much contact that lower anvil is making on the metal. But it's enough to stretch that metal that hopefully it'll be enough to stretch it so we don't get the distortion from running through. Crank it up a little bit, get a little more pressure on it. And like I said, I've seen it work for other guys. We'll see if it works for us. And you probably couldn't tell from the camera, but it's making a little bit of a rise in the metal, and that's what we want. That means the metal's being stretched. It's compressing the metal, which takes it from 18 gauge to probably 19 or 20 gauge if I went long enough with it. But it gives it the opportunity to be able to drop that other metal and not create distortions. Now the bead roller, like I said, I have the offset dies on here, which gives you a little bit more flexibility than the regular dies that come with the bead roller. And I'm not sure I'm totally liking them yet. I have to put a lot of pressure on the panel to keep it, so you can see it wants to tip the panel down. And the other ones have flat surfaces on them that hold the panel kind of in place. I don't know, we'll see when it's all said and done here, how we feel about it. Well, that was one pass. We'll do another one here. And that's, truthfully, that's all the deeper it needs to be. They do a nice job. I'm just having to act a little different with it when I work it, but you can see, got a pretty good little bead there, and that'll be that step. Now I may have to close that up a little bit. I'll go compare it to the panel on the side of the car, and if it needs any adjustment, I can make that adjustment in how far apart the dies are, anything of that nature. So, but that I think is going to be all right. It didn't distort this much at all. Little hammer and dolly, this basically just pushed up on that a little bit, but I think it's going to work out all right. Well, I just checked it against the side of the car, and actually I'm almost perfect with where I want to be here. My difficult part now is, and it's because this is fairly stout metal, this then gets beveled just off that inside line. I'm going to say maybe 30 degrees, and then there'll be another line tipped in here that goes up straight, and then I'll tip a line a ½ inch from that for the fold over that goes to the that holds the inner rocker panel to this one. But so far this looks like that would be exactly where we'd want to be, or very close to it. I got to get a little better at staying on my lines here. If I do that on the other one, that's a long run. It may not be that noticeable, but I came off that line probably 3/16 of an inch in the course of about 8 inches here. So I've got to be more careful about that. Maybe I'll run a couple more test passes and get a little better about staying on my line, and then I think we'll be all right. But it looks like it's going to work out. I put some different dies on the bead roller, and this is what I was using, a pair of these. There's the other one there. And then you offset these, and basically what you're creating, I've been calling it a bead in the video, but it's really an offset. And so anyway, these offset dies are nice, did a nice job. Right here, you can see, creates a nice little offset. And the way I had them situated, they basically were where I want them. So I'm gonna experiment with this a little bit. I'm gonna run a few passes and see what it does for me. In the way of stabilizing the metal a little bit. I've had more experience with these than I have the offset dies. So anyway, after running a few passes, I'll be able to know which one I prefer to do that with. And I think these are a little easier for me to keep on the line. I had a little trouble with that with the offset dies. So I'm gonna try to see how we do here. I wanna step on my barn cat. So there I'm touching. I'm gonna go one full one, we'll walk her down, and we'll see. Okay, in doing this, I'm learning one thing here. I thought I was set up right, but I'm actually making it the opposite way. So I've made a channel through here, which in some cases that would be like a large bead that you would use for the base of a pickup truck bed, anything like that. I'm gonna switch these around and see if I can get the same one going. And I think, well, let me just check, because the distance between these I think can remain the same. There's one. Let's go around again. A little deeper. That's actually, no, I gotta admit, and it does stabilize the metal with the flats on here. So truthfully, as much as I did like the offset dies, I get a crisper line here with these type of offset dies. And I think this is how I'm gonna go when I do the big part. I was able to follow my line around as I made this curve. Although I'm set up backwards, I just gotta flip these, and I think we'll be off to the races. Got the panel sheared off to the right size, got the corners cut out of it for the flanges, and got the template magneted down onto it. Got a thick ink pen to make our line with, and then we'll go to the bead roller with it. So the old adage of measure twice, cut once, where I actually measure 5-6 times and cut once to spare myself the expense of extra metal. I had initially made this line right here. On the outside, you can kind of see there's an extra line there. Because of the offset of my dies, I needed to know where my top wheel had to fall, because the edge here, it looked like was gonna fall to the underneath wheel, so I needed to know. So I made this little offset line right here, and as I set it up into the bead roller, I realized that no, that's going to be on the wrong side. So I've set up a straight edge on this side, darkened up my line really thick, and what I'll do is with a scribe, I will line up my straight edge and scribe a line down through here. It'll be more accurate as a line. And you find yourself using whatever works. I needed this radius. By positioning this bucket in a couple of spots, I probably can get what I need. That's it. There we go. So here we have our scribe line. I will have to adjust for that based on my eye, just because I use this bucket here to make it. But I get a nice fine scribe line to follow. It'll be pretty accurate that way. Nice and slow. Move my foot pedal. Yeah, we're getting there. Just not deep enough yet. Yeah, baby. We're there. What I'm gonna do is use this, I don't know if it's a protractor, is that what they call it? But I'm going to the base of the flat there. You can see it just a little bit. And the top of that ridge, and that will give me my mark there, and I'm pretty sure that there's another inch here where I'm folded over the top, and it comes back this way to catch the inside of the panel. So what I'm going to do is just kind of a little preliminary marking here. This is the line I want to make, but I'm going to put a thick line there that we can scribe a fine line into, and then it should be another inch on top of that. But this is the area that I have to stretch out in the corners here. It's not going to be so bad through the flat here, but I get into these corners. But fortunately I don't have much of an arc here or really here, so it shouldn't be horrible to accomplish that. And so I'll just now I got that measurement off the other one. I'll just keep it in the groove here. There we go. So then right here you can see my other line that is scribed in. Oh, I'm magnetized. But so I get a nice even line, and that's where it straightens out again. And then I go up another ½ inch, and I have to put another bend in it there. Okay, the next step, you can see as I started to bend these down a little bit, it started actually working on the flats here. So that's, I don't want that. What we're gonna have to do is I'm gonna take it over to the planishing hammer with a linear stretching die, and I'm gonna hit this area here and this area here. I've got to add more material because as that goes down, it's gonna spread out, which means I need more material here. The linear stretching die will accomplish that for me. I don't have a deep stretcher, so I can't get into here and do this. The stretcher that I do have will maybe do an inch, but I need to get in here kind of deep, so the linear stretching die is going to be the ticket for this. Here you can see we've made progress. We've got our angled area down. We've got a good offset line, nice and straight across. And so we were able to stretch the metal a little bit with the planishing hammer and the English wheel in these radiused areas. It didn't quite come as far as I would like it to have come. We need about 10 degrees more deflection here in this kind of, if you want to call it a flange or whatever. But anyway, so we've got to, since we have to go a little further, stretch it a little more, I'm going to try something that's a little more aggressive. Probably could in time get it there, but I'm trying to educate myself as well on some of the different ways that this can happen. So hopefully I don't just mess it up altogether and have to start over. But we'll try something a little more aggressively. We'll head over to the sandbag and with a mallet, and actually I'm gonna use a ball peen. I don't really have a good blocking hammer as of yet. This is a little too round here, so I can't be real aggressive. This is too flat on this side, so I cannot be real aggressive when I whack away at it here, but I do want to stretch the metal a bit, and then we can either get it back into the planishing hammer or back on the English wheel and smooth it out, and hopefully that gives us what we need to be able to accomplish another, it might be just a little less than 10 degrees, but we've got a little ways to go yet. So there actually are some options for hammers. This is a polymer hammer that I picked up at a rummage sale and kind of shaped it. I've rounded it off on this end to make a little bit of a blocker out of it. And then I brought this to a bit of a bevel there on that side for hitting in different areas. But sometimes you just modify tools to suit your needs. This is a good blocking hammer of sorts. But what I noticed is that on the ball peen hammer, you basically have the same radius going on the sharper end of it. And I use that quite a bit actually, usually on thinner metal than 18 gauge. But this will give me a little more oomph, some heft to it, some weight. And so this one here is a smaller version, a little lighter. Wouldn't probably do me much good on this. So anyway, got the sacrificial leather to go over the bag so that the sharp points on the metal don't cut into the bag and create a sand leak. So from there, we'll get these out of the way, and we'll see if we can't make some dents in this thing. In other words, stretch some metal. Again, with it being a heavier hammer, I don't have to put a lot of weight behind it. And you can maybe see that I'm making some dings in it. Get the light going the right way there. And that's basically stretching the metal. I don't want to go a long way with it, a little bit at a time, and we'll see if we can't get that 10 degrees or so that we need by working those back out. Well, we were able to grab a degree or two out of this bevel, and you remember how lumpy this was. A few passes through the English wheel does a great job in smoothing it out. But since it's the curve, and I'm not really good with the English wheel, and I don't want to run this under the wheel and end up getting rid of my offset, I have a little more control with the planishing hammer here. And so I think what I'm going to do is I've got the most of that knocked out, and I was pressing up on this outer part as I ran it through the wheel to kind of give it a tipping type action, and helping to migrate that over just a little bit. And both sides seem to come along okay. So anyway, we'll give it a little time on the planishing hammer. There's just a few little dings real close in here to the offset that I really couldn't get in there with the wheel real good. So I'm going to straighten away some of those. I think I can do that okay with the planishing hammer. And so that'll finish that up. I think we'll be pretty close. Then we can tip our edge up in here where it has to come this way. And then in that case, then we're going to have to shrink this area through here and through here for that to come up straight this way, because now you've got metal this way that's gotta come together up there. So anyway, playing around with it. Okay, well actually, according to the gauge here, went just a little beyond here in the center, very close here on my radiuses. So I think we're going to go with that. The next step will be to tip this edge here. You can see that line. I need to rescribe that where it wore away over here. But you can see how nice that smoothed back out. Smooth back out over here. And on this back side. Yeah, all those hammer marks are gone. Anyway, she's coming. Okay, so we've got it tipped up. We've got a nice edge along in here. I probably will planish this with a hammer and dolly to sharpen that up just a little bit. Got a little bit of shrinking to do, and then this gets folded over. One more kick, which should straighten this because we did get drawn in a little bit here. So we'll see what we can come up with. We got to tip it one more time, run her through this way, but I got to make my marks. Well, here's a good indication of what we started with and what we're ending up with. And if we're not careful, it's going to end up looking pretty good in the end. And that has to match that. A little bit of a redo. So anyway, guys, thanks for following along. We'll get the other side finished up, get that knocked out, and then I think it's time to start on those fenders. We'll see about getting those racked up. But there's going to be some disassembly that happens prior to that because we've got to be able to get our measurements out for the full fender. The inner fender, I think, we're good enough that at some points there might be just a little bit of repair work that needs to be done to those, but I don't think that we have to fabricate the entire inner fender, which ultimately is spot welded to the outer fender, but that's something we can deal with. So anyway, after we get the other side of this done, it's going to be about some disassembly stuff. Take you along with us on that, and then we'll get after those parts. We've got to patch up the lower cowl apron down there. A few things ahead of us, and we'll just take you along for the ride. Then we got some flooring issues to deal with. Don't forget to like and subscribe.